All right, and we're back. So I believe this is part three, or maybe part four. I already have the Johnny one up. The Potemkin one will probably be up as this video is getting watched right now, and then maybe one other one. So this is either three or four. But today we have Axel, and I'm joined here by Trevor, Sue. I mean, obviously, I think everyone knows who that is. Trevor, say hi.
Hello, hello.
Um, but yeah, no. Obviously, this is the series where the recent patch rolled around, and a bunch of well, not a bunch, about 6 characters in total: Zato, Testament, Pot, Johnny, Elfelt, Bedman, and Axel got changes. And just going through them, talking to someone who obviously plays the character, with obviously Trevor probably being the best we have in NA here. So, yeah, I guess we'll just start off with the simplest question. What do you believe on the notes was the biggest change, the most eye glaring for you?
So the biggest change for sure for Axel is the grounded heavy slash giving a ground bounce.
Mhm.
There are a lot of opportunities where before he could only route into Snail because it didn't give you the pop-up. And that basically limited your not only like positioning on the screen, because you can do rinse and up and then do the left right or just get out the corner and do whatever you got to do, right? You just had to be at the mercy of, you throw them at whatever distance Snail does, and then you're fighting neutral from there. But with the ground bounce, even when you have them in the corner, you can now get rainwater into close slash bomber, wall break, all that good stuff. So it really is a good change for him because it allows him to position himself better or get more damage off of routes he previously couldn't before.
Yeah, I saw some routes left. 5H now, you can go into charge wild assault.
Yes, if you wanted to, especially on counter hit, that is an option. It's something I haven't labbed too extensively, but I have seen it. It is possible.
Okay, nice. And let me, I'm gonna, I believe before the video started, I just asked you about this. Let's get into the funny change, the tornado change.
Yeah.
So before, yep. So before, as someone who fought Axel and kind of talked to some other Axel players about this, it seemed like the move it was very good in the matchups that it worked, but it seemed like it didn't work in a lot of matchups. So it kind of became like overshadowed.
Situational.
Yeah, very situational. So talk to me about it now. Obviously, they made the movement speed way faster. I
Lot
believe it's
faster, for sure.
100% faster. So talk to me about it. Like, how does that look for Axel now? Is it an essential part of his kit? Is it maybe not essential, but it's way more used than before? Is it still niche? Let me know.
Mhm. So not only does it have the further distance and speed, not distance, I'm sorry, just speed, but it also has a unique property where before, when you would clash projectiles with it, it would take away some of the hits. So two things that they changed for sure was the distance, and then they also changed, or I keep saying distance, I mean speed, along with that other property. So if you like use stun edge or whatever, right, instead of it hitting you at minimum about wait, get hit real quick.
Okay.
That way we can see how many it is. So it's 3 right here, right? Let's say the charge version, I believe, does 6. Yeah, so however many hits of your projectile would cancel out the other amount that
Oh, I
this
see.
one did. So like if it was just one stun edge, then you would get hit for 5 times. Now you get hit with all 6. The reason that's important is because it gives Axel more time to do whatever run up into close slash 2H. Not 2H, I'm sorry, 5H if you want to do the new stuff, right? All that other good stuff. You have more options because it gives you all 6 hits now.
Oh, okay. Are there any characters that you could think of before where the tornado may have been like seemed useless, but now like even if you haven't played the matchup, but now in your
Mhm.
head you can imagine the tornado being like an
Yeah.
actual factor in the matchup.
Yeah, so there's a couple of characters that have really good disjoints in the game, as you know, that kind of just invalidate the move entirely.
Yeah.
That move still, it because it doesn't necessarily clash with the move because they're so disjointed, it's still bad against these characters. So
Yeah.
quick ones that come to mind are Johnny, Ram,
Yeah.
Bridget, Testament. They have good far slashes, good 5Hs. They can all go through it.
Mhm.
However, the ones that have to kind of come up. So Kai is actually a good example of this. He's a character where the only disjoint he really has to contest, to contest Tornado is far slash.
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily get the best reward unless it's a really good counter hit and he's close. Because I think the most he can get off of the furthest counter hit is just like
Sun Dipper.
is stunned it, but yeah, I don't know if he gets 6H. I think it'll whiff. I
Yeah.
could be wrong, but regardless, he's a character where it matters because now, if let's say, you know, you're walking back or trying to hit me and then you get hit by that, the only way you can avoid the worst possible scenario, which is getting hit by that entirely, is if you counter hit me, right? If you poke or trade with me, I haven't tested or labbed this interaction yet. Like you said, I've been busy, but I imagine the tornado will still go away. That is something that I would like to see change. I know it's like people are gonna complain, like, why would you want, the projectile to stay out on what is it, trade or whatever? But like also because Axel doesn't really have a lot of damage, that would be a more meaningful change.
Yeah.
But as of now, as it stands, the speed, right, will catch him trying to poke you out now more, and that's phenomenal. Because before there'd be situations where it was just so slow, right? I would for sure I'm always guaranteed to get counter hit. Now there's more interactions where he'll end up trading with it, and like that's not the worst case scenario for me, because we just get sent to where we are right now in neutral, and that's something that before wasn't as consistent.
Got you. So do you think is the ideal situation to use this move, like, let's say you get a combo or like anti-combo 5p, you go into like the command grab, right? The hard knockdown full screen. Do you set up the tornado then? Is it more of like what situation do you use it best in, do you believe?
So when I'm personally using it, it'll typically be to kind of farm resources. So if I'm close to getting 50 or I don't feel comfortable pulling up because you have 50, right, I'll kind of throw it out there just to see what your movement options are. And if you're jumping, I'll try my best to anti-air. If you're just crouch blocking, I'm going to sit there and just do 2H or 2P, if I'm in range of either of these buttons, because typically you can't really do anything outside of just wait for it to run out, right?
Yeah.
One thing that will happen is a lot of people will try to move and wiggle on that, which is fine for me, because the thing is, when people try to jump over that tornado, depending on how fast their dash speed is and how good their air mobility is, in my opinion, it's not always worth it, because you're just allowing me to get more resources and potentially start the whole sequence again. Where let's say you jump over tornado, right, and you block my 2S. By the time I anti-air you and I press 2H on the ground, I'm probably somewhere around here, right, on that 2H after that interaction, because 2S pushes you pretty far back. What will happen as soon as I hit you with the 2H, right, is I'm just going to set it up again. I'm going to go do this, and then we're in the same situation where you're just having to keep jumping over it, and I'm just constantly anti-airing you. Or if you're just blocking, right, then I'm just going to sit there and do something like this, right, the whole time, because it's just safe. Like, you can't really punish me. And all that does, even though it may seem minor, is one, it's cranking your risk if you're not FDing. Two, it's giving me tension, which I can use to make myself safe. If I ever do this and you get a good ID, I can just PRC it. Axel doesn't win off of doing traditional things like high damage or mix or anything like that. So the one thing that I think is really important for him is farming meter, and the tornado change gives him more opportunities to stop people's movement, and that gives you more opportunity as an Axel player to get that resource to potentially win the round.
Nice. And I'm not sure if Axel safe jump post wall break beats 9 framers. So is the tornado a good option after, like, let's say you break the wall with the super? Is it a good option to set up, or do you particularly like what you prefer?
So I'll say right now, there's almost never an instance where you're ever going to be using meter for a hard knockdown unless you're gonna kill, right? You're using it to kill. If you're using super in the corner to get a hard knockdown instead of whatever Oki you think that Axel might have, Axel's not that kind of character. He, even before the changes to Wilder Soul and all that, he never really used that because he didn't benefit from it. He's always a character that needed that as a defensive resource. So if you were to go into something like that again, it's kind of like to try to checkmate your opponent. But it's very niche, it's very rare. The situations in which the tornado is most useful, in my opinion, is for sure max range characters that can't kill you with their disjoints on counter hit. These are the main things you want to be taking note of when you're trying to, I guess, optimize it, because there's very like I said, niche situations where it can be used in other ways. Where the Twitter clip initially when that move came out was you go into charge tornado, you do the one vision cancel, you press JH, and then they get hit, and then you do one vision, right? That was supposed to be, I think, their intention behind the move of it's not just a move that catches jump movement. It's also supposed to be something that's supposed to be used for mix, but in reality, JH, at least for high level players, really isn't mix. So most of the time that's pretty much useless. I think if you're using the move, it needs to be used, like I said, when you're max range around this area. Even if you're just throwing it out like this, if people are reacting and looking to you charging it, Kai can even do something as fast as neutral skip outside of what Sundipper I think is just Wild Assault, right? So if I'm charging it and you run up and your reactions are good enough, you can either Wild Assault me out of it or you can Sundipper me out of it, right? Of course, if I just let it go, then you might end up getting hit by it and losing that resource. However, it's clear as day when someone's charging it, right? Like I'm not just letting it go. There's a big startup difference. So if you see these sickles spinning around and you're already looking for that as an option, it's probably gonna hit.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I was just gonna say the last thing is I've also seen it be used for Oki. Sometimes I will use it as well because again, it's a good way to farm resources. It's plus when you charge it, so you can do whatever off of. Let's say you do TK Bomber in the corner, it didn't wall break. You want to do something that's a little risky because if people have a DP or if they have a super that will reach in that range, you can get hit out of it. But there are situations in which you can throw that out and it is immediate. Gotcha. So that's another good change. But that wasn't not change, but like I guess good use for the move.
Yeah. So you actually brought up the next point. So you mentioned that Axel wasn't a traditional character where he wasn't using Wild Assault really to break the wall. It just wasn't the type of character he was. So he didn't benefit from the hard knockdown Wild Assault. If anything, it kind of screwed him over due to him being a character with weaker defense, having to block more, obviously not fun. So tell me about how big is that change that now the majority of the cast is kind of playing the same game as him, as in they're not getting the Oki on hard knockdown. Everyone's going back to neutral now without Wild Assault. So how big of a buff is that to him?
So I think that is his biggest buff this patch. The fact that you're not holding pressure, like you said, after every touch, after every wall splat is humongous for him. Giving Axel chances is exactly how he can win the game. Before he didn't have as many, right? Because everything pretty much led to a hard knockdown, and that's where his defense being on the weaker end definitely mattered. So now that people are breaking the wall and they don't have that resource, is actually kind of similar to last patch. Remember when people would get hit on purpose so other people wouldn't farm burst? Sometimes, especially in the corner, it is important to realize if they don't have a resource, right, to hard knock down you, which is just tension now, then it's actually, if you can sustain the hit, worth taking the wall break. This is tech that before Wild Assault was even in the game and all that other stuff, it'd be tech that Zato would use, right, where he would get very high wall damage. He would start routing into drills, right? And people intentionally would take the drills because Zato couldn't get a hard knockdown from it. It's better than just eating constant corner pressure over and over and over again. That is come full circle now with this, where sometimes it is a good thing to get hit. It sounds bad, but when you're back to neutral with Axel, you can play the game again. It's fair, right? This is a change that I've wanted for a very long time, ever since Wild Assault was actually in the game. So I'm very glad to see that the game isn't just pure offense 24/7 all the time. I get that's what Guilty Gear is known for. I know that's what a lot of people like, but I've noticed, at least on Twitter and Discord, that more people like this version of the game than last, for sure. So people actually like interaction. They don't like holding offense 24/7. That may be what the game is known for, but that's not what the players actually enjoy, at least now. So for sure, this is his biggest buff in the patch, because before, hard knockdown on everything, you had to deal with plus frames, you had to deal with tension, you had to deal with BRC, or like all the mixes and stuff that people would end up doing. Was just, it made him look a lot weaker than he was, and people for sure doubted this character last season, and I understand why. The character was never actually bad, on a character level, like his kit is fine.
Yeah.
It's more so the system mechanics held him back. And I've always said that. Season 3 was not his patch, not because he was a weak character, but because he wasn't playing that version of the game. But this version, whatever, you know, they're on now, he has a better chance of doing well, especially with, again, the things that you said about burst gauge being lower and wall splat not giving as much burst as well. All these changes matter in a fantastic way for Axel.
Gotcha. Yeah, and besides, I know earlier we talked about the 5H change, but going into some of his other normals, so the 2P did end up getting a slight buff. The far slash did as well, and the JS. So why don't you walk me through those, if any of them are impactful?
The I'll show the crouching P change. The what is it? Decreased knockback at maximum range. So there would be a situation where I would literally 2P you at the max range. So hold down back real quick. So I'm gonna try to get as close as I can. So you see I was barely just missing you, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna walk a little bit further. Before this situation, right, was a lot more common, right? Okay. It's not as common now. And that's something that people sometimes took advantage of. So if you knew how Axel worked before, even now, he has problems where if you whiff Snail, you're pretty much gonna die, you're dead, right? That's just typically how things work, especially if you're a good mid-range character like Kai.
Yeah.
There's, I believe, he's negative 24 off of whiff Snail on ground Snail. So it's really bad if he ever whiffs that move, right? The consistency with it now is if you're holding down back, let's go back to neutral now. If you're holding down back, it's less likely that you'll get this situation where this is just whiffing in someone's face and they get to punish you and potentially kill you off of it. This is more stable where it does not whiff if you walk back. So try to walk back on it. Like sometimes it will still happen, but it's like I said, it's less likely. Oh wait, this is a low, so you can't actually walk back. But try to walk back when I do Snail here. Okay. All right, let me try to get it at max range again. So you can still do it, right? It still happens. It's just less likely now with the decreased knockback at maximum range. There's more times in which people will actually either block it or they'll get hit by it. And even though it, again, isn't something that is a huge change, it's quality of life at the end of the day, right? It's something that makes him more consistent, more stable. So that change, even though it's not massive, is still very much appreciated. Again, minor, but you'll see how all the minor changes make the character better overall once you put them all together. So that was the crouching P one. The next one is the counter hit change on far slash. Yes, so it has decreased horizontal blowback on aerial hit. This situation is very niche. Sometimes there will be moments where you will get an awkward hit where if you're jumping and let's say someone tried to do, well, in Kai's case, I guess he could do something like Fooder Arc, right? If I hit you with far slash during Fooder Arc, what would happen is you would get sent. Oh no, it has to be air hit only. So that's why you have to jump. You have to be in the air. So it's gonna be we're gonna have to like try to lab it pretty much. I would never anti-air with this move, as you see, because I keep getting clipped by it. But yeah, see that change right there. Before it would send you flying where I couldn't get any other button except maybe 2H, and I say maybe because again you got sent flying so far to the other side of the screen. It didn't allow him to be consistent with that routing. So like you saw how he slightly went this time, right? It's almost basically guaranteed to always get a 2H to follow up with that. There is no other move you can get other than, I believe, like at least mid screen, maybe a 5H if you're that close to them. But more times than not, you're only going to be getting it off of, like I said, really awkward hits where people tried to do some, neutral skip or whatever. Let's say Soul tried to do Bandit Revolver, right? Yeah. And I counter hit him with far slash out of the air. I now always basically get a 2H. And again, minor change, not a big deal. However, going back to how Axel wins matchups, right? Yep. He wins off farming resources. So the fact that I guaranteed hit you with this 2H means that I got even just a sliver of more meter to potentially make neutral now more in my favor. Gotcha. So before, right, 2H would just whiff entirely on that hit. I wouldn't be able to get anything. It was just kind of, a whack interaction. It sucked. Yeah. But now we for sure always get that 2H. We won't get the Rensen. The Rensen doesn't connect, unfortunately, because you do tumble on the 2H. But the situation now, right? Let's try and do that again, the food arc stuff. Right? So I can still do this, right? Now, that situation isn't that great because for sure they could dash out, right? And the RPS between you dashing out and not is if I press up Rinsen or if I exploded. So if you know that they know that there is a gap there where they could potentially move forward, pressing up Rinsen will catch the startup of dash. I'm sure you've seen that interaction at some point when people are trying to run out, right, of Rinsen because they know there's a gap and then that catches their run. That is the RPS that is played now. But before, like I said, you wouldn't even get to the point where you could even throw out a Rinsen because 2H just it may or may not have connected.
Gotcha.
And again, it only works on counter hit, so it's a little unfortunate that it's not regular hit as well. But honestly, you're hardly ever getting a regular hit off that.
And then I believe the JS.
The JS, yes. This is, I think, more just niche. So I want you to try and jump and then press a button.
Okay.
Oh, it has to be in like a counter. They tried like JH or something. Or actually, can't we
Oh wait,
no, because we're in training. I was gonna say, could you put it on force?
I can't put it on air throw.
The air throw feels good. So this is the thing, right? Before you couldn't do that, they would just get knocked down to the floor because counter hit JS didn't have any juggle properties.
Yeah.
They said that they decreased the horizontal blowback. That's just to make air dash more consistent with it, and it has increased launch height on aerial hit. So I guess it did have juggle properties, but because you never went up in the air on it, it never actually amounted to anything. And sometimes you would get a very awkward interaction where you would press JS, you would get the counter hit in the air, and then you would try to snail, and it would whiff. And that felt very bad because again, Axel needs every little hit he can get. It all matters. Now that you can get a full combo on it, again, it's kind of a niche situation where you can't do stuff like this right into it. If I get a counter hit on this, it doesn't actually lead to anything. I have to do it rising.
Gotcha. Okay.
Otherwise, you won't get the counter hit property. But like I said, there are situations where that does happen. And now that you can recognize the situation a little bit better of, oh, I can now combo off of it. Let's look at the damage that I get off of it now. So jump and then throw. Right. You can do a wall break right there if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And that is a very big deal because damage wise before all we would get is just a snail potentially, right? If it was high enough. So do it again and then let's look at the damage comparison. Oops, that was close. So this is all I got before, right?
Yeah.
That is, I don't know, maybe 15%.
Yeah.
Which it's a good amount of damage. I mean, it's not like Axel's not supposed to be a high damage character, right? So I understand that being something he was limited to, but it's nice to even now have the option of, if you're aware of the situation, you can get a lot more off of it.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen often, like I said, but it's the fact that because it can happen and sometimes it will, that could be all the difference it makes in whether Axel is now winning or not, because we are full screen now, right? Which is kind of how Axel wins the game. But before, like I said, if I whiffed that, if I just did this in your face and you got up, you could just run at me and do whatever you wanted, and I'm at your mercy because I can't wiggle, especially against Kai that can just press like /6H, catch back dash, and wall break me like that. That was always a really, really bad feeling.
Yeah.
So now that we have that consistency with always getting a guaranteed snail, and then if we're close enough, we can do air dash, JK, JD bomber, or the world is your oyster when it comes to that. You don't even have to really commit to the bomber. You could do air dash, JK, JD, get 5k. Like I'll show you another combo, for example. So jump again and then throw. Right, you can do 5k into bomber, 5k into 5p into winter madness, right? You can do whatever you want, 5k into wild assault. Doesn't really matter. It's the fact that he now has an actual combo from that starter, which previously he didn't, and that's a pretty big deal.
Nice. And you kind of showed it off in the combo, but talk to me, how much better is Snail this patch?
So Snail, the grounded version of it, throw real quick for me. This is now a hard knockdown. Before it wasn't. You just got put into a tumble state. Mm-hmm. This is a really big change for him because there are times where people will try, and if I'm doing like a 2P or whatever, they'll try to challenge with, let's say, like six for Kai's case to catch me like 6H or something. Mm-hmm. When they get counter hit by this move, it now actually means that I'm farming more resources and then putting you into a situation where I now get Oki. It's not the greatest Oki, right? Because it's the same as if essentially, just threw you and I did this, right? This is technically Oki. But nonetheless, it is still farming resources. I will always go back to that because, like I said, every little change matters. right? And when you look at all of them together, all of them help him farm more resources. So now what will happen is I'll get the situation where throw real quick.
Oh shit.
Oops. No. Yes, you did.
Oh,
Until
why am
I hit it. No, you're good.
Okay, there we go.
So this is new, right? We can do this now. And I mistimed the media on that because I let the rinsing go too early. But it's the fact that all of a sudden now gives me more meter. Whereas before, all I got was this. Like I literally just had to run forward to gain space, and that was it. There was no way I could farm any more resources off of that. And it sucks because you think, if you get a counter hit off a snail, it looks like it should combo into 5p, right? Like try throwing again. Just keep doing it, yeah. This actually doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It looks like it should, but it does not. And the fact that we now get something from it, even if it's not 5p in a Winter Manus, it's the fact that I get to now gain space while also putting you into a situation where I'm farming resources. That is very, very important. It's great. So that's just grounded snail, right? Aerial snail is a little bit different where before you don't have to block here or throw anything, but it is now a hard knockdown always on aerial hit. The reason this is important and is very good because I can gain hella space now if I hit you. So if I do this, right? Look how much space I gained, right? And if I didn't even want to do it, let's say I just wanted to get Oki instead of going for screen positioning, I could just run up in 2H. Oops, I did 5H. Oh my god, my inputs. Give me my dash, please. So it is spacing specific. I think I'm just a little bit too far right now. But like at most areas where you're doing this, typically you can get like the OTG. You'll have to know, your spacings and stuff. But the lower you are to the ground basically is a good thing because you're more actionable. Like if I do it way up here and I'm way back here, this isn't gonna work, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you'll get interactions where even in the air you're doing JP, right? Let's say they're jumping and just getting hit because they're trying to like get what is it? A read on your JS movement. Yeah, you can do stuff like that. But even if let's say you can never hit the 2H because you're not close enough to let's say the corner or in that air interaction, the fact that you can just run up is still very good because screen positioning is also other win con, right? The more or rather the closer I am to you, the more space I have to be able to do this, right? I can keep playing the zone. I don't have to interact with you as much. So being able to even just be closer to your opponent is a very nice feel.
Got you. And I believe you said to like overall, Axel doesn't feel too much different, but these are some nice quality of lives. Are these buffs in the direction that you would have hoped for, or maybe were you hoping for like something else with the character?
So one thing I think a lot of people want from Axel, right, is they don't want the character to be too strong because people traditionally don't like the zoner archetype. So if you have a character that can, let's say, do really well at that range, but then also he can play a very good up close game, it contradicts the direction of the archetype, in my opinion. I know a lot of people say they want Axel to be a better up close character because they like running in and stuff like that. But me personally, I don't think that that's the way Axel 1 should be played, and 2 is really effective for the way that his kit works. Because let's say I had a +1 close slash, right?
Yeah.
What would that really do for me if I don't have any mix?
Yeah.
And when I say any mix, I mean there's things that you can do with Axel. Oops.
Oh.
I wonder why I got disconnected. Strive.
I'm so
No, that's all good.
Room code's still the same.
I'm gonna go back in, but pretty much that's just like something that I want from Axel. I want him to be more of a zoner than an up close character because his kit doesn't really incentivize mix. Like I said, you can be creative with some of the stuff that he has where you can get knee situations that have it. But overall, he's not a mixed character. He's not supposed to be a mixed character. So that's fine. I think what I would personally like is more angles on where I can and can't hit you in the air and on the ground. So there's the options in which I can and can't hit someone at certain points in the screen is very important. I know there's been times where you've seen, let's say it's Leo versus Axel, right?
Yeah.
Leo's 5p is so strong against Axel, right? Because it's low risk, high reward. You get a counter hit, you get to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
If let's say you are in a situation where even you're fighting Kai, right? And Kai does a really good dash 5p on, let's say, my JS, I'm going to get counter hit and I'm going to explode for it, right?
Yeah.
Instead of having just a JS, what I would like for Axel personally is to have not just a JS, but a J2S as well. where I'm now catching that space where people want to start doing, dash 5Ps or dash 6Ps. Like that would make a world of difference when it comes to how good he is when he's doing instant air backdash, because he's only ever good if you're mid or far screen when doing those moves. If you're up close, it's not that great. And something that I don't know, if people have watched my gameplay or anything, but something that will happen is you'll see me doing this.
Yeah.
Right? When you see me do this, it's because I'm imitating. This is essentially like a make-believe J2S, right? Where I'm trying to catch an angle that people like to go for when they're trying to do, like I said, dash 5Ps, because this will counter hit certain moves because it hits so deep. Like that situation where you just got counter hit, that will happen if people try to do, let's say, a good dash 6P or a good 5P. And that gives me a lot more, opportunity to put you in a situation where I've now, counter hit you, I can do this or whatever, and then boom, we're now playing my game again.
Got you.
But when I do this, right, don't try to 5P me, just like, I guess I get hit. This is still a risk, and a very big risk of that. Like, there's a lot of characters in the cast that when I'm doing stuff like this in your face, it's not good. I have to do it at this range. I have to do JH because it's the least risky option for the biggest reward. And sometimes, oh my goodness, what is wrong with the game? It says no answer from host.
I got kicked this time. Okay.
I'm sorry. This game is better now, but the online is still trash.
It's all good. We can just continue like this.
Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, that's just something I would really like to see if they ever. And I know it's like technically a new move, but like that would just make a world of difference when it comes to characters that like to do that against him. It creates another layer of RPS where I'm not even necessarily gonna say that I could Snail confirm, because if you know how the angle of Snail works, you wouldn't be able to get a confirm off of a J2S unless it was a big counter hit, which I don't think it will be. I mean, it might if they give it the same property as JS now. However, it's never going to happen. This is just something I wish would happen, right?
Yeah.
But that would be something that would make his zoning a lot better, in my opinion. I'm not going to say I want to be greedy and say, I want a DP as well, or I want better defense or whatever. I think Axel, again, as a zoner, should be weak up close. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. That's healthy. I'm okay with my character not being broken. I don't like broken. I like fair, but in the way of what is fair to the whole cast. So like right now, I think Axel is in a good state. I don't think he necessarily deserves anything, but let's say they didn't go this direction with the patch and they just bumped up the offense yet again, right? Then I would start saying, like, why wouldn't you give him a DP?
Yeah. When
he just has to hold pressure all the time if you ever get in once, which for, let's say, healthier characters is very likely because they can take more risks. There's your Slayers, your Gold Lewises, Potemkins, Johnnies, all these healthy characters, right, where they can afford to get poked by my characters several thousand times, but they get in once and I'm dead in like 2 or 3 hits, right? And again, that's how it should be. However, when it comes to defense, I think 2K is still a very good button. It's not bad, but it is situational, because let's use Elfel for example. Even though 2K on Axel, right, is a great button, that button means nothing against that character because of the way that her Rekka starter works. Right? I can't ever interact with it outside of, if she's not jailing it from 5H or whatever, because my 6B is also the worst in the game. It's 12 frames, and the reward on it is very bad. So outside of the character having great mid-range buttons, great far-range buttons, he's not supposed to have good up-close stuff. But if you're going to give him something, sure, let him have a low-profile GK, because against some matchups it does matter, and then others it doesn't. Like there's other ones I can name that's not just Elfelt where that button doesn't really do much, but I'm okay with it because I think it's rewarding to be right on defense. I personally never really cared for being on the receiving end of pressure when I had resources. So if I have YRC or burst or even deflect shield, it's a little comforting, right? Because I have something, even if let's say it gets baited or whatever, it's the fact that I have that option. With all the defensive mechanics in the game, I think it's okay for him not to have something like a DP, especially with the way DPs work now, because it just really wouldn't matter. Axel would die just like he would if he didn't have a DP anyway, now that you can't RC it.
I think I'll ask the question that I think a lot of people would want to know. So obviously he's viewed as a weaker character. Obviously that's why he's getting one of the few selected characters to get the changes. off again, I know it's early, but off first initial impressions, where do you think Axel can fit in with the rest of the cast? Not necessarily like placement on a tier list, but like,
Hmm.
is he in the category of he can win, or is he closer to that than like, or is he just closer to that? Like, is he?
Yeah.
Because obviously before, you know, Wild Assault Hard Knockdown and Burst and this and
Yep.
that, obviously,
Yep.
like you said, he was a good character. He just
Yeah.
wasn't really playing the game the best, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
so where can you see him now? Obviously, I don't think anyone out there will say he's some top tier, right?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but is he closer to the spot you would imagine like you want him to be? Is he in the
Hmm.
category he can win, or is he kind of like in the bubble with everyone else below that? Like, because
Yeah.
me personally, I believe the game it's really, really balanced in terms of there's a lot of characters. Like, of course you have your top tiers, and then you have your high tiers. Like, maybe Kai and whoever else fits there with the high tiers, and Naga
Yeah.
with the top tiers. But then right below that, it's not too far off from the high tiers. You have that bubble
Mhm.
of like probably like 15 or 10 whatever characters, 12,
Yeah.
15, 16, 17 characters just kind of floating right there. Is he higher in that bubble? Is he in the can the win tier? Where do we see him?
So I will say this is for sure just speculation on my end because I
Mhm.
can't say without playing every matchup and then
Of
figuring
course.
out how he stacks up in the roster
Mhm.
just yet. But I will say before towards the end of season 3, despite the system mechanics being something that worked against him, the character was always a mid to high tier. So if we're looking at it from this perspective of there's a S, A, B, C, whatever, he was always B plus, borderline A. It just depended on the matchup. So where I see him now that people are starting to not have hard knockdowns off of every wall break, I imagine he would now be a solid high tier. I think he would be in the A category now for sure against most of the cast. I don't think he's overwhelmingly better, but the fact that the wall breaks just don't matter as much
Yeah.
will boost him even if it's slightly, because right, like I said, he was B plus before, right? For now it would for sure be A. I think the only issue is that you have matchups where, again, he has low health, he doesn't have good mix,
Ram.
his damage is fairly low. Yeah, there's your Rams. I'm gonna be honest, there's your L Felts. And I've been low key kind of dooming on Slayer because he's just so tanky,
Yes.
and he does a lot of damage. So like, there's matchups like that where I just don't see him really clutching it out in a first to 3. It's not that he can't; it's just very difficult. But again, there's other matchups in the game where you may not look at it as he's I guess winning, but in reality he does have very good options against these characters. So I'm thinking of like Asuka, Bridget, Bedman, and to most people's surprise, Giovanna is a character that
Really?
relied heavily, in my opinion, on getting those hard knockdowns, farming her meter, and then putting you into the nonsense that Nitro does, right?
Yeah.
Him and I have played that matchup a lot. And my take on it, or at least last patch, was that it was slight Geo favor, and that was strictly off the strength of she's a fast carrier, she does high damage. Like if Axel's wrong even once, it could just be the end of the game. But one thing that we were talking about earlier with the defense is 2K is a really good button against her. Her 2K 2D does not work on Axel because on reaction, whenever you see the startup of 2D, Axel can always just counter hit her out of it, send her to full screen, and now she's playing the zoning game again, which is really bad for her. But like going back to the original conversation of where I feel like he stands, he has good matchups in the game, or matchups that can be gapped if they are losing.
Yeah.
And now that has only gotten better for him. The only thing that has worked against him actively was the characters that were more healthier in the game. Not healthier, gameplay wise, but like actually like the tankier ones. They were able to farm more resources even just by playing my game. So before Wild Assault was in the game, people wouldn't have the neutral skips that they have now, where they wouldn't have the pressure off of certain normals. They couldn't do far slash in a Wild Assault or raw Wild Assault and be plus from it. Like that was never in the game. So it was better back then for Axel because he could farm resources where it would be used against the other player. But with that being a resource that affected the entire cast, and people now being able to put him in more strike throw situations or just their own plus frames, it made it really difficult to enjoy playing his style of game because it just worked against him.
Nice.
But
Okay.
now the game is 100% catered towards that type of play style, so he can only get better from here.
Got you. And I guess I'll ask the final question. If for people looking to pick up Axel, because obviously you said he's kind of just quality of life changes, so it's not like, you know, even like you, like the best Axels are learning like a whole new character, right? It's not like Johnny where he's like everything is just different, right?
Yeah.
You know, he's you know,
Shout out to Johnny players because they're really good.
Oh man, but it's not like Johnny where it's like everything is different, right? Like you said, it's kind of the same game plan. He's just more stable, consistent, fits better with the game mechanics. So, for people looking to play the character, what are some advice that you would give them looking to pick up Axel this season?
So it really does depend on what your reason for picking the character is. One thing that I didn't get to in the last question that I'm going to briefly reference here is, can Axel win, right? Axel Low can win. Axel is a good character. Axel has a decent matchup spread. Is he a broken character? No. Is he going to have an easy time in the matchups that he plays that are against him? No.
Yeah.
But if you are playing the character because you like the archetype, because you enjoy that style of gameplay, it is rewarding. It can work. Is he going to win a major? Probably not by himself. You probably will have to pick up a secondary or make him your secondary, because there are matchups where, like I said, the Rams, Slayers, Elfelds, they're just really difficult in a 1st to 3 setting to really clutch it out. That's something that you have to take into consideration if you're trying to pick up the character. He's not going to solo win a major. He's not strong enough to do that. And it's the same when, you know, you look at other characters that fit a certain archetype. Potemkin is also in that, you know, category of he probably won't win a major, but, you know, shout out to A-Boy. So you can make it work if you're just, and this is, you know, not me being a hater, but like there's a small amount of luck that's required for that. You have to either one, be that much better than your opponent in that given, you know, tournament, or you have to, like I said, pick up a secondary and then use that for the matchups where he just really struggles. But the character can win. He is fun if you like that style of gameplay. And one thing that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to that character is because he's so rare to fight, because people traditionally, especially in gear, right, don't like zoners. He can always have the element of surprise. You can do some funny stuff that will work in a 1st to 3 setting that people will not expect, because no one usually gets that level of Axel practice, assuming you want to become like a top player on that character.
Yeah.
A lot of people will base their opinion on the character off of, you know, people that haven't put nearly as much time as the top players into those characters, and they'll be like, oh yeah, this character sucks. He's garbage, you know, and insert whatever negative comment you want. But these people that speak this way typically lose to better players on that character. So like he is going to be more rewarding the more time that you put into him.
I completely agree. And it was a pleasure having you here. If I will put your Discord, if anyone wants to go reach out to Trevor, I'm pretty sure his DMs are open. Super nice guy. Goes to my local. Sadly, I haven't been there in a minute, but
it's all good.
But we will soon. But yeah, go reach out to Trevor. I'll put his Twitter on there, and I'll put his Twitch on there in case he ever does decide to stream. Put that on there as well. It was a pleasure having you, man. Thank you for coming by.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
And yeah, that'll do it. And I believe that's any last words. I think we're good.
Actually, yes, I have a very important message.
Okay, here we go.
I know everyone is watching this video because y'all like Axel or maybe want to know more about him, but I'm telling you right now, in 6 months, I'm a Venom player, and it's not because I hate Axel. I've always wanted that character, so I hope you find him well, and someone can pick up my my baton, because me and Stealthy, we off this character in 6 months. Y'all got it.
I'm gonna be there with you, bro. I'm gonna be there with you, bro. We'll be on that boat together, my brother.
Yeah.
We'll be there soon. But thanks everyone for watching, and yeah, that'll do it. Thank you.